After 3 hours of driving with presents, I heard my mother say 3 words: DONT, come in. No embrace, no grin. It was only a thorny whisper. Electricity, canceled. Water, canceled. Wi-Fi. Yes, it was canceled as well. I stopped paying for the love they never showed me this Easter. It never occurred to me on Easter. 3 hours of driving, baskets that are handmade, premium wine. According to Mom, the floral clothing made my skin sparkle. Then avoid entering. 3 words. No embrace, no grin. Just a woman who used to call me her daughter standing behind a partially closed door? I blinked, made an effort to grin, the sort that resembles sharp foil. Are you kidding me? I inquired. She gave a painful shake of her head. No, Victoria, it's not the time today. The day is going well for the family. Like I wasn't a part of it. Then softly like a lullaby, she added the dagger. She won't come inside if you show up. Emily added. Oh, Emily, naturally. Another holiday had been dictated by my venomous, golden-haired half-sister. I didn't inquire as to why. I didn't have to. I was aware of the pattern. Emily needs to have her energy safeguarded. It was an offense that I was there. Me. I caused trouble. An excessively noisy ghost. Laughter rang through the walls inside. Cheers to a family that sticks together. Uncle Mark slurred. Then came Emily's voice. As sweet as sugar. This Easter is really tranquil. Not a drama. No negativity. I gripped the bottle of wine tighter, although my dress was somewhat raised by the April breeze. I wasn't chilly by the wind. The void in my chest was the cause. I had taken a leave of absence. I had prepared treats for their children at a cost of around $300. I even donned that fucking dress that Mom approved of years ago. Perhaps, I reasoned, this time would be different. However, I was aware, in my heart, I always did, I wasn't related. I served as a utility. Who was responsible for paying the water bill? Electricity. The Wi-Fi. The offstage background character who never had a line but paid for the props. Mom refused to give me a direct glance. She wasn't upset, simply afraid. Emily might cry if she's scared, may shout, may spiral once more. Because Emily's tears always weighed more than my self-respect. I gave a nod. All right, then, I said. Enjoy a tranquil Easter. I spoke quietly, light. However, each phrase struck like iron. I then pulled out my phone. I tapped the finance app, scroll, press, electricity, do not pay. Water, don't pay. Wi-Fi turns off automatically. The lights flickered within. A voice yelled, "What the hell?" Then her voice came, clear and piercing. Why is there no Wi-Fi? I turned to face Mom, directly into the eyes. Don't be afraid, I said. No more $3.20 so. Your walking utility pole is not me. Her fingers were shaking as she reached out. Perhaps to prevent me. Perhaps to cling to what she had already given up. It's too late, I pivoted. Walked off, tires on a damp surface. The Easter basket continues to swing around my wrist. Behind me. The sound of anarchy at last recognizing the cost of its tranquility. I heard it again before I had even arrived at the expressway. Emily's cry. Who turned off the Wi-Fi? I didn't look back. I just cocked my rearview mirror and saw her storm out of the house. Her face flushed. Her phone poised like a weapon. Mom followed, holding tight to her pastel scarf, her suburban motherhood costume that she always wore when guests left. It buzzed on my phone. Water service. Canceled successfully. I grinned. No smile, not happiness. The silent comfort of finally letting go of a bomb that had been rattling in my chest for years. She let out another, louder scream. This isn't possible. Children are present. They're hunting eggs. Without the internet. How are they expected to play? As I passed the front alley, I rolled down my window, shouted loud enough to be heard without even glancing at her, Emily. Ask someone who is truly in the house. I am merely the ghost who was expelled from the celebration. She whirled, wide-eyed. Screeching voice. You're insane. Children are present, I gave a shrug. Teach kids to play outside, perhaps. Better yet, Provide an explanation for Aunt Victoria's exclusion this year. Mom let out a gasp. Easter is a day for family, Victoria, I chuckled, dry sandpaper on the tongue, after slamming the door in my face. Are you truly quoting family values? Following my erasure by Emily due to negative energy, she parted her lips. There were no words, only air. Then in further internal voice, water is scarce. This time, Uncle Mark, worried. Has anybody looked at the fucking meter? I hit the gas pedal, slow, respected. However, a white SUV sped out of the garage, blocking the road before I could even fully drive away. Emily, hands on the hips, flaming eyes. You have no right to act in this manner! She let out a scream. Mom lives there! I live there. Because you're having a tantrum. You can't just ruin everything. I took my time, remained motionless. I just pulled out my phone once more. Netflix, cancel. Hulu, cancel. HBO Max, cancel. Then I raised my head. Do you believe that I'm having a tantrum? I opened the car door, went outside, stood taller than I had ever felt when I was beside her. No, Emily, I am exhausted. So I canceled everything. Are you sick of serving as the backstage technical crew for your ideal little play? I'm sick of being a walking cash cow with no plan. She gazed at me, nothing to say. For once, just that breathless, open-mouthed quiet. Inside, a child sobbed. Mom came running back in. Panic in action. I stood there composed and in control. And before I departed, I said one final thing, Happy Easter. Not a light, no water, no internet, but as you desired, I'm sure there's a lot of wonderful energy. I then took off in my car. Don't turn around without hesitation. I have no regrets. I took a while to return home. I chose to drive directly to a parking lot next to Goleta Beach, kick off my shoes, and let my feet sink into the chilly sand instead. The sky had a fatigued, pale blue color, the type that arrives after a long day but isn't quite ready to go. The air is salty, waves whispering as if they were aware of something I was not. I opened my phone while sitting in my car. For social reasons only. Avoid scrolling. For the truth. I opened my banking app again, the one that never shows the figures. And there it was, $9.84 stwu. I had sent that much in the previous 12 months. There are $9,842 lost. In order to maintain the lights, to maintain the water's flow, must maintain a stable Wi-Fi connection so Emily can access her emotional support Netflix and Zoom treatment, which she never paid for. Furthermore, I was no longer even permitted inside the house. 3 years ago was when it began. At age 56, Dad, Charles, lost his job. The construction industry collapsed. His business failed, and they were drowning in a matter of months. I had recently secured my first full-time position in the finance industry. New diploma, new hope. I'm still proud. I'll assist, I said. Until Dad discovers something new. He was still between projects 3 years later. After 3 years, I had turned into a living, breathing ATM. Water cost $73 per month. Electricity, $180 to $240. According on Emily's level of comfort. High-speed fiber internet costs $91 a month because she gets anxious when there is lag. What about the extras? Family phone plan, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Spotify Premium. The first recently paid $42 a month for a Peloton that was never utilized. The night Mom contacted me is still fresh in my mind. 10:04 p.m., as if it were a scandal, whispering. The dentist informed me that I would need to have 2 porcelain crowns redone, sweetie. Although it's not urgent, I feel ashamed to smile. I sent $2.40 without giving it any thought. Thank you, but no. I'll pay you back soon, was all that was texted the following morning. As a spoiler, she didn't. Soon was a lyrical equivalent for never in her vocabulary. Then there was the vehicle. Emily's priceless SUV in a pearl hue. By herself, she was not eligible for a loan. Mom called me, her voice dripping with honey. Your sister needs something secure. Victoria, would you mind simply co-signing? Just for a year, yes, I replied. I did, of course. I received the notice from the bank 6 months later. 2 payments were not made. Can you guess who paid the $1? $700 to keep her credit safe. Yes, me. I initially thought it was my responsibility. Big sister, steady work, no children, no significant costs. However, there was no end to their type of sacrifice. It was bleeding instead of providing, and they fed more the more I bled. I heard Emily at the party one Christmas. I was in the kitchen, but she was unaware of it. Victoria constantly has the appearance of someone who is going to read someone's will. Long face, no husband, no children. She is wealthy, though, thus she remains valuable. Mom didn't stand up for me. She simply took a drink of her wine. Oh, Emily, your sister is simply exhausted. Are you worn out? I was too exhausted to even touch it. I wasn't worn out from my job. I was sick of being made fun of when I was responsible for 3 grown-ups. One meal that comes to me is from, of all places, Olive Garden, calmly. I said to Emily, "Are you aware of the remark that it's fortunate you don't have children? You have no qualms about calling me for money because of this." She grinned and rolled her eyes. "Please, you're not perfect. By paying your bills, you are merely purchasing control." I wanted to smash the glass of lemonade I was holding, rather. I grinned. The kind sister, the comprehension one, so far. I finally acknowledged something I had kept hidden for far too long as I sat in my car by the beach. The sky growing dimmer like someone softly turning off the lights on a stage. Family was never me. The sponsor was me. The emergency fund. Their life's soundtrack constantly present but never acknowledged. I visited the house 3 weeks before, to Easter without telling anyone. Only groceries. Mom preferred organic products. A baguette I had found in a bakery. I was going to leave it and go back. However, I heard noises coming from within as I approached the porch. Emily's sweet, piercing voice. She is constantly so agitated, like a violin string on the verge of breaking. Dad. Laughing. She most likely avoids social interaction for a whole week. People enjoy that respite. Then Mom arrived. Gentle, but evident. Well, she's at least helpful. The electricity would have been turned off long ago else. Emily chuckled. Exactly. She is lifeless. No husband, no children. We might as well cover the costs of those who do. I let the grocery bag fall. Apples were all over the place. They weren't picked up by me, with my throat held in place. I simply got into my car and went home. I gave Mom a second credit card that evening, for emergencies only. And there it was. Line by line, punch after punch. The MacBook Pro costs $1.89, $9.03. $200 for a 4-day meditation retreat in Sedona. $650 for a full body package at Serenity Spa. Tickets to Palm Springs round trip cost $438. Subscriptions to the health app cost $74.99 per month for 6 months. Comparing this to Emily's Instagram posts, I reestablish a connection with myself through meditation. I vomited. Not for the cash. However, due to the lack of shame, I gave Mom a call. Have you purchased a MacBook? Hold on, that was for Emily. I see. She required it in order to work remotely, and the withdrawal to aid in her stabilization. She cried for the entire month. Are you indifferent to her emotional well-being? I remained silent. She then went on to say, Vic, you earn more than we do. You shouldn't care about a few thousand. That's when I understood. Her words were not even heard by her, because I was no longer a daughter in her eyes. Not much more than a living bank account. I sliced the second card in half that evening, tossed it in the garbage. Nothing was resolved by the sound of the plastic breaking. However, it seemed like the first bandage applied to an overly exposed wound. The knock occurred at approximately 6:17 p.m. the following evening. Out loud, in a desperate situation, it burst through the door like a war drum, just as I had filled a chamomile teacup with hot water. The peephole has 3 shadows: Mom, my dad, Emily, crowded in the little hallway of my apartment building, which is on the 3rd level. Anger, embarrassment, and possibly shame were the reasons behind their hot faces. Perhaps not. I took a while to open. Give them another chance to knock. Allow the sound to last long enough to give meaning to our stillness. Mom's voice was harsh and an octave too high as she yelled out, Victoria, you're being ridiculous. We're acting as though we're in the Stone Age. From behind her, Dad yelled, Leave it open! Emily thrashed. Are you really allowing the entire family to go crazy without hot water or Netflix? I inhaled deeply. Emily nearly staggered forward as she opened the door, just as she lifted her fist to bang again. I left the door slightly ajar. No welcome in my face. Nothing but silence, I said. Come in. However, anyone who speaks louder than 3 decibels. I'm going to call the police. They entered as if they were entering enemy territory. However, I wasn't the adversary. The homeowner was me. My tiny apartment became a stage. Like a grumpy CEO dad began to pace with his hands squeezed behind his back. I thought I heard the cartilage shift since Emily rolled her eyes so violently. Mom, she sobbed, exactly on time. Who do you suppose you are? This place is Queen, Emily yelled. Your feelings are hurt, but you can't just cut everything off. I didn't wince. I didn't speak loudly. I simply took out my phone, turned it to face them, and unlocked the screen. On it, my most recent assertion. Each fee, every automatic payment, all unseen sacrifices. I said in a flat, lifeless voice. I'm not hurt, I'm accustomed. And I put a stop to it. Dad laughed. Vic, it's not that big of an issue. This is being exaggerated by you. Yes, we did rely on you somewhat. But that was because we trusted you. Just a bit. I raised an eyebrow and repeated. In 2020, you lost your job. I've spent more than $26.0 since then just to keep the lights on. Slowly. I turned to each of them. Mom visits spas. Sedona is Emily's refuge. You all treat my card as though it were a communal fund. Nobody inquires. Nobody is grateful. That isn't trust. Exploitation is what that is. Mom's voice broke. You know I didn't mean to, Victoria said. No, I interrupted her. You simply thought I would never refuse, since it's simpler that way than asking. With her eyes flaming, Emily took a step forward. So what? Do you want us to bow down and plead? I gave a headshake, took a folder out of the drawer in the kitchen. With a dull thud. Place it on the table. No, simply sign. As she turned the pages, she scowled. Calmly, I said, the lease transfer for your pearl-colored SUV. It must be removed from my name within 30 days. I'll notify the lender after that. She looked exhausted. You must be joking. I am not eligible on my own. It's not my problem. For the first time in years, I gave her a direct glance. I made an effort to assist. You treated me like an idiot with that. I then looked at Mom. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime. Everything was canceled. Tonight is the last day of streaming. I will delete all gadgets and reset all passwords tomorrow. Dad hit the table with a slam. Are you disciplining your own relatives? I gazed at him. Don't blink. Don't be afraid. It's not a form of discipline. It is freedom. It isn't that I don't care for you. It is that I will no longer be utilized. Quiet. The suffocating, thick sort. The kind that accumulates over years and then abruptly breaks. Mom's mouth dropped open. I waited. An apology, perhaps. Perhaps regret. However, the outcome was worse. This is something you'll regret, she muttered. Family cannot be turned off like a light switch. I gave a nod. No. Self-respect, however, is. And I switched it on today. Emily was the first to go, didn't speak. As she was leaving, she banged against the doorframe. Nobody responded. Mom trailed behind, flushed. Never gave me a glance. Dad was the one who stayed by the door the longest. He surveyed the area, witnessed the life I created. The serenity, the tranquility, the non-neglected plants were dying. He shook his head after that. You're alienating everyone, and nobody will be. Available when the time comes for you to need someone. I took a step forward, gently shut the door. The bolt clicked softly as it was turned. That's better than being surrounded by people who only approach me when I have a lot of money. It seemed as though a storm had passed after they had departed. It's not the destructive sort. The sort of air-clearing kind. I wasn't prepared for a call. A message. There's a knock. I also received nothing. There is no damage control. Don't be angry. Don't take a guilt trip. Just silence. And it didn't feel lonely for the first time in my adult life. It was liberating. I shared a picture of a homemade latte 3 days later. I had no intention of proving anything at all. All it was a nice cup. There it was, at the very top of Instagram, the story of Emily. Black background, white text. When you need someone the most, some people desert you, but everything is visible to God. Karma is real. Hashtag family betrayal I didn't respond. Disliked. Take a screenshot of it, like an old receipt. I saved it. Then, as I was throwing away an expired coupon, I closed the app. It did arrive 2 days later. An electronic mail. From Kelly, Ben's spouse, the partner of my cousin, the woman who was always a bit of an outsider during family gatherings, observing. The headline, I just wanted to express kellyheartworks@gmail.com is the source. Victoria, at Easter. I witnessed everything. When your mother turned you away, I was in the kitchen. When Emily made fun of you, I noticed your expression. You accomplished something I've never seen someone do before. Not flinch, not begging. Simply put, say enough. I've always felt weak for keeping quiet. However, I now believe that quiet is erasure rather than grace. We appreciate you teaching us the true meaning of boundaries. I hope all is well with you. Kelly the first read it twice. Don't cry. No rage. I get a sensation of warmth rising in my chest. At last, someone noticed me. Not like the wallet, not as the antagonist. When love arrived with receipts, I made the decision to leave the table. Slowly, I typed back, I'm grateful. Kelly, I've never been better than I am now. Additionally, your email is the first thing I've seen in a while. That gave me a sense of belonging. Victoria the first sent it, the window shut, and I felt another thing open inside of me. The peace, with a pulse and the apartment that turned into a soul silence, used to seem like punishment to me. Growing up, disappointment was followed by quiet. A poor grade, a neglected task, something I shouldn't have felt. Every time, silence struck like a chilly slap. It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough. Now, though, silence was like the first time you breathed underwater and realized you weren't drowning. You're afloat. I expected something after they departed, with the screaming, the sobbing, and the SUV screamed into the street like a scene from a daytime drama. A message, a phone call, perhaps a series of emails about honoring thy parents, or a Facebook quote post directed at me. However, nothing appeared. Not guilty. Not a sound. Just the silence I didn't realize I needed. And something in me let out a breath in that silence. What did I do first? I did some cleaning. I did more than just clean surfaces. All apps linked to autopay were deleted. I deleted all of my devices from Spotify, Netflix, and Prime. Passwords were changed. Cards were switched. The apartment that had previously felt like a stopover between obligations and work began to feel like home. I no longer owed it to anyone else, not because I owned it. I purchased a guitar. Craigslist found a used nylon string. $60. A small abrasion on the rear. Its belly still had a tag that read, "Easy to learn." It had spent more than a year in the corner. Don't dream decorate, however. I picked it up that week. Since then, I've pushed my fingertips on C every morning. Next, D, next. G. I sound awful. However, it's my fault. Nobody is shouting at me to decline. No door slamming from a sister. No sighing from the mother. Only me, as well as the tremors between my ribs. Next came photography. I was buying soup when I noticed a leaflet for the community center. Saturday beginner class, $25. Since college, I had not handled a serious camera. Life became hectic. I became weary. The lens remained closed. However, I had a borrowed Canon and unsteady hands when I entered the school on that first Saturday, and I recalled the way light bends at 3:12 p.m. when it enters a window, how rust can mimic lace in appearance, how sound will never take a better picture than silence. I began to record everything. Parking lots with rusty fences behind them, through iced tea, sunlight, pigeons in mid-air, their wings hazy as paintbrush strokes. Each click of the shutter was a breath. For art. No, not for approval. Just to prove that I'm here. I also happened to run into Melissa one day. Old acquaintance from college. The kind you lose when you're too preoccupied with providing for everyone. She was the first to notice me. Victoria. She blinked, then grinned. You appear lighter. We went to get coffee. 3 hours were spent talking. Almost anything. Almost nothing. Around the time Mom made me drive 4 hours to bring her soup, and Emily texted me that she was having a life spiral. I hid in the library for midterms. Melissa merely listened. No sympathy. No suggestions. Then she stated something so straightforward that it made me laugh out loud. I've never known anyone as brave as you. I refrained from crying. But at last, something old and worn out settled inside of me. I went back to writing. Just a few lines in a journal first. Short stories come next. Narratives of women who were erased until they discovered their writing instrument. Stories of soul bruising wounds that didn't bleed. No one edited the stories. Not very pretty stories. However, they belong to me. I'm having dinner with 2 of my photography class friends this week. I'm attending the Santa Barbara Book Expo next week. This evening, hot chocolate, sofa. Before I knew I had light, I penned this narrative in the dark, not to change it, not to make things better, just to pay tribute to the me who dared to speak. I was once asked, if keeping quiet means losing your family, is it worth it? No, I thought. Now, though, I finally understand absence is not silence. It's space. Room to expand. Room to breathe. Area where people can live without being harvested. I am not a victim. Not a rescuer. Not an active wallet. My name is Victoria, 28, residing in a little apartment with a used guitar and cinnamon candles. Instead than avoiding light, learn to shoot with it. Composing content that no one else reads. And grinning. Not with other people looking on, but because I'd like to. The life that didn't wait, and the letter that arrived too late when I spotted it. I had just returned from a photography lesson. A simple white envelope was taped to the door of my residence. No delivery slip, no sender, simply writing my name in a handwriting I recognized like muscle memory, Mom. I took a while to open it. After placing it on the table and pouring a glass of cold water, I watched the sun set across the wall of my living room, like a memory I hadn't requested. It extended gentle, long shadows. I bided my time till nightfall. I didn't unfold the paper till after that. Victoria, I'm not sure where to start. Furthermore, I doubt that you will ever read this. However, I want you to keep in mind that you are still my daughter regardless of how furious you are. I never will. Even if you forget that. Perhaps the first relied too much on you. Perhaps I didn't shield you from Emily's remarks sufficiently. I erred. But you are loved by me. Since you departed, the house hasn't felt the same. The water line snapped. The wireless network went down. To be honest, though, it goes beyond those things. It has to do with your absence. The silence you left behind. The reverberation of everything we said incorrectly. I folded the letter, set it down on the table, and simply sat. Don't cry. I have no lump in my throat. No emotional outburst like in movies. Simply take a breath. Slow. Actual. It is similar to waiting at a bus stop after walking for miles and suddenly recognizing that you are no longer in a rush. I used to believe that if my mother ever acknowledged her mistakes, I would break. I used to fantasize that she would say, I love you without seeming to be conditional. Now, though, I recognized it for what it truly was now. I no longer stood in the station where a mail was arriving. A paper intended for a version of myself that was no longer residing here. Her letter is not necessary for me to survive. I can breathe without her affection. I can legitimize the years. I spent raising a family that only saw me as light when they wanted something plugged in, without having to apologize late. By the window, I lit a cinnamon vanilla candle. I performed the acoustic song I had recently learnt, not for attention or recognition, just because it lessened the hollowness in my chest. In front of the mirror, I stood, examined myself. Stop flinching. Perhaps I was too sensitive is over. No longer acting like being a daughter was an unpaid internship. I am not an echo of my mother. Emily's shadow is not me. I am not a backup plan. My name is Victoria. 28. Living alone is not a result of no one wanting to keep me around, but because I ultimately made the decision to leave people who were only interested in me when they were failing. Family, they say, is forever. But, in my opinion, dignity lasts longer. I'm going to compose a story tonight about beginnings rather than misery. I'll take my camera tomorrow and stroll through the downtown area, capturing the way the morning light dances on walkways and coffee mugs. I'll join a writing circle the following weekend. And I'll respond as follows when someone inquires about my family. They are real. However, I also exist. And that's sufficient. Forgiving isn't always the most courageous thing to do. Walking away is sometimes the solution, and avoiding a peek back. Because bleeding silently in the background is not how you gain peace. You can choose peace when you at last remember I was not made to be helpful. Being complete was my birthright.